Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Let's Go Outdoors. And indeed, we are going outdoors. Well, at least one of us is going outdoors. I'm heading down to Tabor, Alberta, where we catch up with Ken Kranrod, Vice President of the Alberta Conservation Association. And more importantly, he is helping some novice hunters get involved in the Tabor Pheasant Festival. Ken, first of all, thanks so much for taking some time. I know it's busy there and chatting with us today.
You betcha, no problem. Glad to do it.
Let's talk a little bit about the activity. This is day two of the novice hunt and opportunity for new hunters to first get an introduction to shotguns and learning how to handle them.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically the Tabor Pheasant Festival, as the name kind of implies, is all about pheasant hunting in its most simplistic form, I guess, if you'll say. But it is actually, as many of us in the conservation world know, it's much more than just simply pheasant hunting. It involves habitat issues with land use down here and landowner relationships, improving or maintaining habitat for pheasants and other animals that use those same areas on the landscape, camaraderie, knowing where your food source comes from, and just all of that in together under the general umbrella of conservation, if you will. So that's the Tabor Pheasant Festival in a nutshell. The Novice Shoot is the 2-day weekend event, which always kicks off Tabor Pheasant Festival. And as the name implies, it's geared toward novices. A lot of people think kids, which it certainly does. And we always have many, many kids of all ages out here trying hunting for the first time. But it's also novices. So we have many women come out, new Canadians, or just people that have always been kind of interested in hunting, but have never had the opportunity to go. And that's what the Novice Shoot is. It's meant for, is to provide an environment for people to come on out. We have everything set up. We have everything you need in order to try hunting for the first time. We have Alberta Hunter Education Instructors Association comes out every year. They're a main sponsor and partner in the event, and they have their range set up where people get to try shotguns, some of them for the first time, and the instructors there show how to use them competently and safely. They get them hitting targets, and then they immediately go over to the field where we have pheasants out there for people to try their hand at actually taking flushing birds in the field, retrieved with dogs to hand, and then they move over to a tent where we have a number of helpers showing them how to field dress game properly for transport back home. And then we often have big pots of pheasant stew ready to go so they can actually try what it's like to cook and eat the game that you take in the field. So essentially, it is a field to fork event for brand new people, all rolled up in one package.
I know that a number of years ago, I had an opportunity to get down and attend the event, and it still sticks in my mind, Ken, the first time that a first time hunter was successful in taking a game bird, and that excitement, that thrill, it just doesn't leave you, does it?
It doesn't actually, and this is the 14th year of this event. So we've been doing it a long time now. And, we saw that the very first time we ever did it, and we continue to see it to this day. Even just this morning, where we're getting to the end of our morning session of having almost 30 people go through it. And it doesn't matter whether it's kids or adults. I had a lady actually, she was struggling to hit some targets and whatnot and missed a couple of birds, but she finally took our bird and she was so happy bringing it back and just almost skipping over to the tent to see how she could field dress it and whatnot and take it home. It's just that pure excitement of getting what you're after and whatnot out in the field. And it's just, I think it triggers something that's kind of primal in everyone and whatnot. And it's just a joy to see because it continues to happen and it never gets old.
Ken, as you mentioned, 14 years. I'm curious, has anyone who participated in the novice hunt in past years, have they come back and actually then participated in the Tabor Pheasant Festival, actually going out onto the field on their own? Is it skills that have been put into place to your knowledge?
Oh, it's very easy to answer that. And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. I mean, specifically, we do have people that were introduced to pheasant hunting through the novice shoot, and then, yes, come back to the Tabor Pheasant Festival in subsequent years to participate in the regular hunting events. That happens regularly. That no problem there. But then we also have continued to stay in touch, or we hear from hunters that went through the novice shoot, and then outside of the Tabor Pheasant Festival, they move on to pheasant hunting on their own or other types of game bird hunting or into waterfowl. Actually, they start going out duck and goose hunting, and then people actually moving on to big game, taking their first deer and whatnot. And these folks, they remember that where they got their start, that getting over their initial apprehension and getting that initial training at the novice shoot of the Tabor Pheasant Festival, they remember that, and so they like to share their journey and their successes with us. And then in addition to that, we've actually seen where there's been some adults come out for the first time to the novice shoot. And then a few years later, they're bringing their kids who are now old enough to hunt themselves, and their kids go through the novice hunt. And so there's very much a continuation, a knock on effect of what the novice shoot does in a much bigger scale.
Well, speaking of that bigger scale, I mean, the Tabor Pheasant Festival, as you said, 14 years has become the gold standard, I would say, when it comes to involving an entire community and getting the community behind the event, and I guess to no small extent the surrounding landowners who have participated by allowing you folks to release pheasants onto their land and have hunters come out and try their luck.
Very much so. I mean, the vast majority of southern Alberta is in private hands, ranchers and farmers and whatnot. And so we wouldn't have the Tabor Pheasant Festival if it wasn't for private landowners allowing access onto their lands. And that we had to do that right from the start 14 years ago. And it's worked out tremendously well. I believe it started with 30 landowners. And over time, with the growing interest in the event, it grew to 40 landowners, what we have now. So there's definitely a big buy-in from local landowners as well as community, the town of Tabor and the MD of Tabor, where the actual event takes place. They're also huge participants and supporters of the event. So it's really a case of massive buy-in from partners of all different types and forms and shapes and whatnot, well beyond Alberta conservation and Alberta hunter education instructors. If it wasn't for everybody, the supporters, the landowners, the municipalities, and the participants themselves, Tabor Pheasant Festival simply wouldn't happen.
Do you have any sense, Ken, in what the festival brings to the local economy?
I don't actually have any numbers off the top of my head right now, Michael, but what I can tell you is given my role in ACA as well as Tabor Pheasant Festival, I've talked with and continue to talk with many business owners in the community, gas station owners, restaurants, hotels, and they've repeatedly told me for a long time already that the economic benefit to Tabor and surrounding area is great. It's a time of year where the town fills up. Hotel rooms are full. People are buying supplies at the local shops. They're filling up their vehicles with gas. They're going out to restaurants to eat out for meals. And I've actually been told many times that this is the busiest week of the year for them, going even beyond traditional holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas. So it really does have a major economic benefit. And I can't remember the name of the report actually off the top of my head, but there was actually an economic survey done that details all of the added benefits to the local community. And we actually, several years ago from Alberta Tourism, we won a Sustainable Tourism Award for the festival and its effect on local economies and tourism.
You know, you mentioned the word sustainable, and I can't let you go, Ken, without talking about the conservation element of all of this, because you are releasing pheasants onto the land. Not every one of those birds is successfully hunted. It can go on and live a life on the landscape. And something I've noticed too, when I have driven down in southern Alberta, I've been seeing more birds along the ditches or coming out across the highway. it does appear that over the years, the pheasant release program has produced more birds, and we're seeing them on the landscape, maybe getting back to those old days.
Yeah, it's I want to be careful what I say here because yeah, the old days were quite tremendous and whatnot, but you do make a good point in that there is an effect of that nature, and it goes beyond the Tabor Pheasant Festival. Sure, we do release a lot of pheasants, not only just at the Novice shoot, but also at the Tabor Pheasant Festival release sites. And as you say, a number of those birds go on to exist into the future and whatnot. But then we're also nested within the provincial release program as a whole, which is a specific program with multiple sites around the province releasing birds for the purposes of hunting. And in a similar fashion, not all those birds are shot. And so some of them live well beyond the season and even through into the next year, having broods of their own. And you end up with little hot spots of populations there. And then you can add in changing climate, changing habitat use patterns. We have a big program where we talk with landowners and municipalities about things that they can do to not just improve habitat, but reduce their impact on pheasants as well as all other upland game birds that utilize the same type of habitat. Municipalities are altering their mowing schedule for roadside ditches, for example. Doesn't sound that sexy, but in terms of what it can possibly do to minimize impact to game bird populations, it can be huge. And so it's that many, many times over that hopefully all that together helps move the dial and increase the number of upland game birds as well as pheasants that we see out there on the landscape, and therefore an added benefit to the huntable populations and the opportunities that present themselves.
All right, Ken, we will leave it there. I know that you want to get back to helping some hunters spend the rest of the afternoon, hopefully successfully hunting a pheasant, and wish you nothing but continued success for the balance of the week as really you're just getting going
Yes.
of the overall festival. So we thank you so much for your time this morning.